Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for those who died in the recent storm. Thank you.
President,
Yes, sir.
to open public hearing under the accordance with section 4246(6)B. The council may review, discuss, and or take action on the following items. Edward P. Smith Properties LLC, request for a proposed amendment to the comprehensive community future land use map of the zoning ordinance amendment concerning 8 Richmond Townhouse Road, designated as lot 19 and tax assessors plate 6C.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Do we have someone here to describe what's thank you. Please give your name and where you're from.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the town council. Attorney William Nardone, offices at 42 Granite Street, Westerly, on behalf of the applicant, EP Smith Properties LLC, and he's also present along with Mark Castellanos from Terenzi and Associates, who did the survey and mapping for us. As you indicated, this is a petition, joint petition, for rezoning the property located at 8 Richmond Townhouse Road, the location of the Charahoe Furniture business. This property has been zoned residential for, in our opinion, way too long. It's been operated as a business for close to 100 years, not always furniture. There was an auto dealership there for several years, quite a while ago. The property itself is about 1.2 acres and is essentially totally built out as it exists and continues operating as a retail furniture store. The petition before you is to rezone the property from R2 to general business. We appear before the planning board on 2 occasions for their review, and in order to obtain the advisory opinion of the planning board to this council. The advisory opinion was favorable on both the petition to rezone and the petition to change the comprehensive plan future land use map to be consistent with the proposed rezone. The rationale that we presented to the planning board is included in the memorandum that was presented to you by the planning board, the advisory opinion itself. There's nothing mysterious. It's a plan a request to zone the property to what it really is being used as. That'll make it consistent with the comprehensive plan. It'll normalize the use with respect to what the property is and has been for, as I said, a number of years. In addition, the lot will become conforming as to the required minimum area, because the minimum area for general business use in that zone is 1 acre. This property exceeds that, so it will be conforming in that respect. And it would also reduce the nonconformity with respect to the percentage of lot coverage. It doesn't become conforming, but it significantly reduces the nonconformity to bring it closer to what it should be. The planning board spent considerable amount of time over those 2 meetings in a very thorough review of the application and came to the conclusion based upon the unanimous vote that it makes sense, it's consistent with the comp plan in a number of areas. It supports general business, it supports the business use in that zone. The planning board also reviewed the two different business groups, compared the uses in neighborhood business to the uses in general business, and came down, as we did as the applicants, on the side of general business being more appropriate and a better fit for that property. So with that, we concluded that it's the best zone selection for the property, to bring it in closer to conformance all the way around in specific areas and supporting the comprehensive plan by changing to general business as opposed to neighborhood business. Mr. Smith is here if it has any specific questions for him. The surveyor is here as well if there are any technical questions with respect to the mapping. And I'm sure that you all took a look at the memorandum and the advisory opinion that was presented by the planning board. And that's really a very thorough presentation, and Talia didn't leave a whole lot for me to do, which is fine. And that essentially concludes the presentation, again, unless you have some questions for any of us.
Does anyone on the council have questions before we go to the public?
No, thank you.
I think it's great that we're fulfilling the intent to zone that general business is what the intent is, because there's been business there for so long. Does anyone in the public have any questions online?
President, move to,
I'm sorry, one moment. We're having issue, so I just wanted to ensure. Nope, no raise hands.
President, move to, close present, public hearing.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, move to, accept
Point of
the,
order. I think getting a little frustrated, with, like Robert's rules, we for permission to speak on that.
I did say Mr. President.
Yeah, but
Right.
then you just started. I have to acknowledge it. I mean, I know it's a small detail, but
Mr. President,
yes.
motion to approve Mr. Smith's request for this to
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Do we need zoning
Yes.
separate, please?
Mr. President,
Yes.
motion to approve 1A and B. Of the comprehensive
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. President,
Yes.
motion to approve consent agenda. You had to move the second to third. So 1A,
August 12th.
August 20th. So motion to approve 1B, C, D, 2, 3, and 4.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion second.
Yes.
Motion to approve consent agenda item 1.
Second.
Consent.
I think you can
I
say.
can second.
Okay.
We can make corrections upstairs, so we'll pull that for future. So if we could just refer that to the next executive session.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
Next,
Yes.
motion to move to the next meeting.
Excellent. Session, right?
Executive
All
session.
those in favor, we need a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, now we move to the fun time of the night, but first I have an announcement to make. We are still looking for poll workers, especially in the later part of the day. Is that correct, Erin?
Yes, the afternoon shift from 1:30 to 8:45 PM is, we need about 3 more bodies would be ideal.
And it can't be any of us because we're running, so.
Can I
Oh, yes.
Can I ask a question? Do you know if that's a federal holiday?
I wish it was.
I'll be working, so I could volunteer for like after the later part of it, like 5 to 8ish.
Email me.
I would-
Anybody who has any inquiries on it, certainly email me and I can set you up with the training and we can work out some logistics, but any help would be greatly appreciated.
It's important. We can't run our elections without poll workers. So the public forum is open. Anyone who has something to say, please come up and identify yourself. I'll go with you first, Jim. Left to right, you know.
Good evening, Council. Jim Palmisano, Richmond. I'm here as the new chair for the Richmond Recreation Commission. Wanted to just pass that news along that we had a vote this past meeting and I was the last guy to step backwards, so I'm chair. No, I want to just also thank Robin Woodmansee publicly for all the work she did. She's still part of the group, but she got us to where we are today. The reason why I wanted to speak was on two things. One, just to share with you an update of what we're doing. So we have a lot of planning going on, thanks to Aaron and the whole team for the holiday lighting. So we'll have the holiday tree lighting this year. And we're really working to make it even bigger and better than last year, which will be hard to do, but we've got a lot of exciting things going on with that. In addition to that, in the spring, the committee is looking at some different events like a cornhole tournament that would be turnkey on the property. So we'd hire someone to come in to do that. We're looking at things, possible road races. We're looking at a car show. So a lot of fun events for the community. In order to make that happen, we need to have people to do that. And right now, the committee is on a razor's edge of quorum. So I wanted to make an appeal to, if any of you know any people in the community that might be interested in getting involved with the Recreation Commission to be part of planning for these fun events, or if the public's listening today, that they might be able to join. Aaron, I believe they just reach out to you and they could fill out the paperwork, and then council would approve them to be part of that. As the chair, I've let the committee know. Obviously, I'm a candidate for town council. I'm cautiously optimistic, but obviously that could change whether I'm involved. So I want to see the good work of this committee come to fruition. So I want to make that appeal if any of you know anyone who would be interested. So any questions for me?
I just wanted to say that in an unofficial capacity, because I'm town council currently, but I may not be when the car show comes. I've organized motorcycle shows and car shows, dozens of them, and I would be happy to help in some kind of way. I have a lot of contacts that have show cars and trucks and
That's great. And I know that we have official members and then we have members of the community that can help out too. So we have, they're not members of the quorum, but we have the recreation director, Morgan, who is part of our meetings, as well as Kate Schimmel, who's there from the health and wellness. So they're part of it. So we have a lot of adjunct people who will help out. So it'd be great to have your help. So thank you. Thank you, council.
thank you.
One more.
Yes, Councilor.
Yes.
Do you have a date for the holiday tree lighting?
I believe December 6th is the date. It's a Friday. And I think we're starting around 5 p.m. We're really looking at some innovative things. With the road change, it's going to be a bit more complex this year. So we still want to have the fire pit and the activities possibly on the other side, but we'd have to work with a single lane crossing instead of closing the road because we won't have that. We are looking at how we're going to manage parking, which will be a different scenario, but Charlestown is having their event on the same night, which is good and bad, right? So there'll be people that will go there from Charleston and we'll draw our crowd from Richmond here. So I think we'll be able to manage that. We're also looking to get a bigger tree donated this year. So we're in the process of finding out. So any connections are always appreciated, but trying to get a big tree. We'll always have the regular tree, but we want to have something really as a focal point. And we're also going to have a menorah this year. So we're branching out to have a true holiday celebration. So
Jim, in other words, you're asking somebody if they know a guy?
if you know somebody that has, we are reaching out to organizations, but I guess we're not opposed to if somebody had a tree on their property that they thought would make a great Christmas tree. I think we'd be open for that. Yeah, that would be great.
That's all you're looking for.
I said 30 feet. Erin said, how are we going to hold that thing up? But right. So we'll, Yeah, I mean, a big tree, I think it'll be nice. I think it'll be nice, and we depend on DPW, shout out to them because they're gonna be helping with a tree that large to make the stand and to rig it up, so
Do we have any kind of crane or something that we could hang it from?
I don't know. I don't know.
Or a bucket?
Christmas tree.
We're gonna have to figure that out, but anyway, I didn't mean to make this all about the Christmas tree, but I just wanted to make sure you're
Yeah.
aware of what we're planning and make an appeal, so people can get involved. Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks, Jim. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, sir.
Good evening, council. My name is Gary Parker. I'm a Richmond resident. It's my first time speaking in front of the council in a long time. As a naval officer retired, I applaud the use of Robert's rules, even though they were instituted by an Army officer during a time of crisis. So good on for that. My recommendation is, is it possible to bring in, when we have our boards, onboarding of board personnel for like commissions and volunteer boards, to actually train them in Robert's rules as well, like specifically as part of a kind of an onboarding process. I was part of the EDC and part of planning board in the past, and felt no criticism at all about the chairpersons there, but I just felt like I was sort of a stranger in a strange land, when trying to operate in a Robert's rules environment, or at least a parliamentary environment with virtually zero background in that. And so it was just kind of just a suggestion as whether or not they could be kind of instituted as kind of a mandate to the board chair, the chairpersons.
Sure.
Back when I was first elected, Charlestown actually performed a service for all newly elected officials. And they did an amazing job. They actually had somebody come down, give us Robert rules books, go through the entire process. And I would honestly, if you've ever been to one of their meetings, they're stellar. I would highly suggest going there and seeing if Deb Carney still has that at her fingertips.
Okay.
She's the president of Charlestown. She would be able to point you in the right direction. They
Roger that.
have all the resources done, and might as well utilize them.
Oh, certainly. And if something,
Town partners.
yes, sir. Yeah, that would be great. I mean, for my own education, of course. I mean, I've actually gotten fairly schooled on Robert's rules since then. Finally figuring out what I finally knew, but I did not know. That was an important piece. But just wondering if there was a way to have that part of our onboarding process, not just for elected officials, but for volunteers as well.
Okay.
That might be something. Sir.
Maybe what we can do is, when the new chair is appointed, elected, that they could receive a copy from the clerk about Robert's rules.
Yes, sir.
And they can read it, and if they've got any questions or they got any apprehensions about, after they do read it, maybe they can have a sit down with the clerk, because I'm sure she's very much up on Robert's rules.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the general idea that it's enabling, not constraining. It provides a forum that it just provides a kind of an orderly process. Now, speaking of orderly, am I permitted to ask a question of Mr. Zangari?
Sure.
Town solicitor.
I see it.
This is actually just an educational piece, sir, just to ask a question. Regarding open meetings, and the Open Meetings Act, does that prohibit a board chairperson or a board from getting together and actually going through a training process with new members or continuing training among the board itself?
No, it's not an official meeting. You're not discussing any town business.
Okay.
So
Cool.
if it's training, no.
After that, great. There may be some misunderstandings regarding that. Just the idea of people getting together itself could be a violation, but I think I see your point.
I think if it's for training, I know the council has done it in the past regarding an open meeting, different on how to handle those things. I believe the entire board was there with representatives from the state, and that was this calendar year, Ms. Lees?
Yes, actually, I was gonna add, so the league just announced Friday at a meeting, they're gonna have a elected training for council onboarding and school committee January 10th, and they're combining all of it this year. This is gonna be the first that they've done that for ethics and open meetings training to cover boards that attend training that may have to make some kind of decisions. A meeting agenda should always be posted. However, if you're just participating and you're just listening to the training, there's no need to have an agenda for that, certainly. But local parliamentarians are certified to do those type of trainings, and so that would be to bring in some kind of training in that facility, that would be an added cost. I'm not a trained parliamentarian. However, I do hand out all onboarding, open meetings, and links to those things. But that is something, if the future council wants to make an initiative, that could be implemented, I'm sure.
Excellent. All right, just,
Oh, no, thanks for coming back to me. I was actually gonna say a lot of them and said how our council put together the open meeting, training, and that we should definitely follow Robert's rules and take it upon ourselves to learn it. But the next council can definitely look into options for the boards. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Anyone else? Going once. With forum closed. Next is reports, and I'll invite Karen to give hers.
Thank you. The first item I have is a request for approval to award a bid to Solitro Property Solutions for sale of preserve parking improvements. We're gonna do this, or request this in an amount to, not to exceed $121,120 pending additional funding from Rhode Island DEM. We did post a bid for sale for construction of 3 parking spaces, a timber stairway, multiple wood boardwalks, site clearing and grubbing. We received 5 bids. The lowest from Solitro Property Solutions for this $121,120. However, our funding is limited to $76,000 from a grant from DEM, Land Trust and Suzanne's. The Land Trust does have an additional $30,000 in their stewardship account. However, $8,000 of it is earmarked for the consultant who's helping them with this project. So obviously we need some additional funding, and Suzanne has reached out to DEM to find out if there's additional funding to be had. So rather than coming back to you again, if we are able to get that funding, I would ask for your approval to move forward with this.
Mr. President?
Yes.
To move forward with this with the amount not to exceed $121,120 with the town share to be in the grant. Karen?
Yeah, is there also any match with that?
I'm sorry?
Was there any match with that, or?
Yeah, we are required to provide the 20%
in-house.
match, but yes, so the
Yeah.
funding that we have in-house that we've been paying Horsley Witten for the design. And there's a complete design and the permitting and everything already in place. And then we also have volunteer hours that count as match. And so the funding that we have in hand that you're mentioning, we would put towards it, but that would count as our match. And then we have a grant. And they also reached out to DOT, who they thought might have some additional funding that they could provide.
If our funding was to fall short, we could use opera funding.
Yeah, that's further, actually, that's,
I'll say the other thing is I have a meeting on Friday to meet with Solitra if you guys approve this part going forward. And I've asked them to provide an itemized bid so that we could go ahead and enter into a contract with them to initiate the project. To spend that $76,000 grant funding, which we were supposed to have spent by April 1st. And so that way we could do hopefully most of the project. And then I could hopefully work with some Eagle Scouts to maybe do the boardwalks or some of the portions of it that we can't afford to fund. So I'm looking for ways to kind of cobble it together with volunteer time and other things, but wanted to move forward with the contract and would negotiate with whatever funding we had to get as much done as we could.
Mr. President, my motion's on the floor. It was seconded.
I don't think it was, but obviously something, I have clarity on what it is, as we went into conversation after. Or we need to-
No, not to exceed the $121,120.
Okay, any further discussion before we vote?
I would just like to know the location. Where is this place?
It's on Chelsea Farm Drive.
Chelsea Farm Drive.
Okay.
Can't go to the end of Canyon.
Yep, it's off of Kenyon Hill Road at the end of Chelsea Farm Drive.
Those of you who have lived here for 30 years, you know where everything is, but I've only been here 8 years. Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's a property that was purchased by the land trust. It's a 112-acre property. It does not directly abut the road itself. It's landlocked, so to speak. And we have a right of way across the adjacent property. And so we didn't want to invite parking right on the cul-de-sac. So we're going to just build a little bump out, which is actually on the town right of way, which is would be the extension of the road had the cul-de-sac continued on. So it's considered town property, and our right of way extends there and then across and up to our property. So it would allow a few people to park and then to walk on a boardwalk up to the property where we have had an Eagle Scout actually create some trails, and we have a kiosk, and so then it could be open to the public.
Nice.
Yeah, but in order to open that 112 acres for people to hike and recreate, we need to create that little walkway to get people there across the other property.
We're getting uppity. We have a boardwalk now.
Well, it's because it's wetland. It's only a boardwalk to be elevated for above a little small section of wetland. That was part of our wetland permit. Otherwise, it's just a dirt trail.
And I'm glad, it's very smart, you're asking for an itemized bill, so that way if you do find you're coming up a little short, some of that funding doesn't come through, you can kind of delete one thing, and then, like you said, the Boy Scouts can, maybe fill the gap in with that. Excellent, thank
That's what
you.
I'm hoping, yeah. They've been super helpful. We've had a couple projects already, and we had the Youth Conservation Corps do some invasive plant work for us this summer too, so, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The second item I have is an update to the council on the status of our ARPA funding. So you see at your places, I provided you with the chart, and I apologize because it's not. But, so we did receive a total of $2,313. I'm sorry, $313,838. So at the bottom in red, you'll see the projects that are completed. Those include the 4-log chlorination system. At the top is the 4-log, which is not completed, but there's 150,000 earmarked for that, which we do still need. Ashway Fire has a little over $1,600 left to spend in their allocation. The Human Services Department has spoken to Danielle. They said they can reallocate 73,000 of their funding to other projects. The community health advocate that works with the chief and the police department, they do need their entire 85,000 allocated to them. We do also still have money in the line item for iParametrics, but they've begun assisting us with other grant issues, and so we'd like to keep that money there. Because we did receive a grant from Senator Reed's office, we can put 50,000 of the radio tower allocation back into ARPA to use that for other things. We have almost 10,000 left in the generator account, but we expect to use that as they're letting their work now. In the IT line, there's $11,723. We can also reallocate that to another project. We anticipated using all of the $40,500 for the police station renovations. That's a match to a grant. The chief's actually just starting that project. As you know, you approved at the last meeting that work. Some of the small businesses actually declined the opportunity to take the grant, so there's 19,000, almost 20,000 we can reallocate from that. We have $22,621 left in town hall renovations from the carpet installation, because that came in a lot less than we expected. They still did a great job. So we're hoping to use some of that for projects that I'll mention in a few minutes. We've used up the allocation for the sign for the town hall. And lastly, Talia suggested that we put back the money for the Wyoming design. So this leaves us 249,000 and change to reallocate to other projects. Now, the hitch is all the money has to be obligated by the end of this calendar year. So we were trying to brainstorm some projects that aren't super complicated, because obviously we need to get a bid out and awarded before the end of the year. So some things that we've been thinking of is, this room actually doesn't look too bad, but the whole rest of the town hall interior is original to 2020, and it's, I call it battleship gray for
You mean
our
20,
Navy.
2000.
Sorry, 2000, yeah. The color is horrible.
It's
There's
depressing.
cracks. Yeah, there's cracks that need to be filled.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Is this chart available for the public?
Erin it's a new version as of
Right.
today. There is a version on the website. As of today, there's a new version, but Erin is gonna link it to the agenda or to the minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Some of the other things we've discussed, and we actually did have some money in capital to replace the roof, because again, this building was built in 2000, so the roof shingles are getting to the end of life.
Good idea, because it's gonna be a big hit. We would just have to schedule that soon.
Well, the nice thing is, it has to be obligated by the end of December, but it doesn't have to be spent for, I think, another whole year after that. And then the other thing we had talked about was, power washing and staining, maybe putting like some sort of high gloss finish on the board outside. So in the interest of time, I've actually posted bids for all three of those things. We wrote right on the bids, it's, subject to council approval, of course. One of the things that I did do, especially with the interior painting, was I broke it up similar to what Suzanne was saying. I broke it up into first floor wall and trim, first floor ceiling, second floor wall and trim, second floor ceiling. That way, if we don't have enough money to do everything, we can. And then I believe Council Wilcox has a project further out down the agenda. And one other thing, the Four Richmond Townhouse project across the street has been very complicated. As Natalia can attest, we've been trying to do an environmental study on that, which the HUD requires us to do before we can do anything. And the company who's going to do the environmental study now wants to see the engineering. The engineering study can't be done because we haven't got approval from HUD for the money. So it's this whole chicken and egg thing we have going on. So we were thinking if we allocated 10,000 from ARPA to pay for the engineering, we could get that done and then get the environmental study done. We'll move forward from there. We've got a lot of balls in the air. I don't know how you want to handle this. If you want to just toss around ideas of some of the projects you like, if you want to wait till after I set the bids being due for all of those things for Wednesday next week, so that they can make the next council agenda, especially since there's not a council meeting after that.
All right, I just have a quick clarifying question. You said it has to be spent by the end of next year, but I thought it was the end of 2026 that it had to be spent by, so I could be wrong, but I want to make sure.
We have to look it up, but it has to be
Right.
Yeah. So one thing I thought we may consider, given all of this extra funds that we've got to spend, and we've got to allocate, a metal roof would last 3 times as long as a shingle roof on the town hall. That's something we might want to get both a price for a regular shingle roof and get pricing for a metal roof.
I was thinking if we're going to put a new roof on, that would be a time to consider putting solar on the roof also, because that could significantly save on.
That was my thought too. I signed up for Notify Me, so I saw when the bid got posted, I got an email alert and like that plug, Notify Me. But that was my thought when I saw the bid for the roof get posted, we should maybe look into solar. I just don't know if we have enough for that, but I think it's a great option.
I just don't wanna lose any money just because we didn't allocate.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That would break my heart.
Right.
You know, people put solar on the roof.
Yes, you can. How's the roof on the police station?
It's good.
It's metal,
We did an
right?
overlay, no, it's not asphalt. We did an overlay probably.
Good question on one of the things, the reallocation of the Wyoming study. I think the council voted to allocate that money to that, so does the council have to, vote to put it back into,
Yes.
because you can't just, you know, but, no offense, Tally, but you just can't say, well, we're gonna put this money, yeah.
No.
Like I said, I thought it was a town council vote, you know.
I thought it was a very important study. I thought it was very important for the future of our town. Our town, the town area is a pit. So with that being said, if you could address that.
Absolutely, I don't have the power to reallocate the money. The question was posed to me of, do you think that this is still going to be viable in this time frame? And I said, no, I would be comfortable if the town wanted to reallocate that money. It's not as though I'm, pulling the levers that move money from one place to another.
I didn't feel that way at all. It was, my concern is that the study's not, that it hasn't been done and it's not going. Because although I don't want to turn this into Chapel View, the town into Chapel View, I still would like to plan our downtown area and improve it. And I know that one of the developers, the Capstone Realty, was waiting for both a state plan and a town plan of what was going to be done with that road as far as widening it, changing curb cuts, etc. So I thought that was at the time a very important expenditure of money. I'm incredibly disappointed that 2 years later we don't have it done.
So, Mr. President, there was a study done almost 10 years ago in our area. It was quite a detailed study. I know it's upstairs in the office. So there's a lot of information already available. I don't know if it's a probably done. So Town Hall Plaza, they have to decide what they want to do over there, and then they say, well, we need the road cuts. The town wouldn't make the road cuts until they knew what Town Hall Plaza was doing, so.
Yeah, and I think we're waiting on the
Stuff
state.
should be resurrected, because it looks really good.
President, when I did some of that developing in a few areas in the state, the developers actually came to the town with a plan, and then they approached the state to either widen the road, change the pitch of the road, and the amount of curb cuts that they're gonna need with their future development. So with Capstone, if you give them the idea that the town will work with them and work with them to discuss with the state what their plan is. I discussed it with a few people, and you look at South County Commons is perfect for that. Keeps the rural atmosphere, and it's not any big box stores. There's retail on the bottom. There's professional offices up top, and there's a lot that they can do with that property. So Capstone would spend the money to do their own plan, and then they would come to the town. That's the way it happened. And a few of the things that I was involved in development, it worked out great. The state was very accommodating. Once they put the master plan on the table, it worked out real good.
Yes.
I just wanted to just give a brief reminder that when council had discussed the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, a representative from Capstone came to the council and said that we need to choose what we want for development, and they'll make their plans accordingly. And I really don't want to turn this into a debate about now, because I feel like enough damage has been done. So I just want to talk about back to the Wyoming study, and what we want to do there, you know, if it feasibly just can't get done for whatever reason, I'm glad that we know so that we can take, the money back and reallocate it elsewhere. I'd like to get us back to that study and I guess, with that, Mr. President, motion to unallocate Wyoming development.
Have a
So we have
second?
to unallocate the others as well, don't we?
Probably the small business loan. Yeah, motion to unallocate all listed on the spreadsheet.
Dahlia.
I just wanted to quickly interject. This was something that I discussed with both the chair and the vice chair of the planning board.
Yeah.
And they're both fine with reallocating this money
Okay.
for other purposes.
Can I,
So any further discussion?
can we clean up that motion
Yeah.
just a little bit, because there's a lot of unallocated, so maybe we can have it all in a motion?
So each individual one?
It can be
gladly
one
do this one.
motion, but I think you should say unallocate this amount
Okay.
for this, that
Sure.
way.
For sure.
Okay.
Motion to unallocate the community advocate department, human services, $73,000. Motion to, unreallocate, the radio tower for $50,000 and the IT computer for $11,722.60. To unallocate the small business loans in the amount of $19,979.61. Allocate the town hall renovation in the amount of $22,621 and the Wyoming design study. in the amount of $40,000. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Other than that, do you want to wait to see what the bids come in at next meeting and move forward from there?
Sure. That sounds like a great.
It includes, traditional asphalt shingles. That's what was posted. The only problem is there won't be enough lead time for it to get on the next agenda to compare it.
Okay. Oh. Next is the chief.
Evening, everybody. How are you?
Chief, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. So, three items. The first one is a request to extend the previously authorized temporary full-time employment contract with Phil Broder. Phil has been doing a great job. Handled some difficult calls, and I've gotten unsolicited positive feedback from the public about his performance, how professional he is with people, how calm he is under stress. He has been assisting us because we've had a civilian employed full-time dispatcher deployed in the military since August of 2023. And we only have 3 full-time dispatchers, we 24/7, and that need is great. So I'm asking that we extend after learning that she is redeployed or continued on this current assignment until December 2nd. That we, God bless you. No. Perfect. I didn't feel anything. Trying to make it light. So, December 2nd, she is supposed to be completed with that assignment. So until that time, I ask that he continue with the.
President, to move to extend Phil Broder's, temporary full-time employment to December 2nd, 2024, taking into consideration what the chief has just informed us.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you.
The second thing I want to share is last Tuesday night, it was National Night Out. It's a national campaign to bring the public, community members, and law enforcement together in a positive, non-stress environment. There's police cruisers there, kids can come and touch and sit in, talk to police officers. It was a great event. There are some pictures up behind you. Both of our school resource officers were there, Brock Taylor and Mike Ellis. After working 8 hours in their respective shifts, they came out and represented us for 4 hours. With myself, there were several other departments there. I'd say there was probably a couple hundred people there over that 4-hour period coming and going. But because it's such a large parcel of land, plenty of room to roam and some quality moments with kids and our officers. It was it's beyond standing next to a cruiser. It's being present in the moment and engaging with people, forging positive relationships. And I have found in my 37 years in the SROs in our school, those relationships lead to better decisions for kids. They are more apt to share something in crisis with you rather than internalize this stuff and have problems afterwards. So just a great event, and our thanks to Charleston for inviting us over with other area police departments. And the last thing I have is, it's hard to say one scam because a lot of these things get recycled, but there is a common theme. And I just ask that people remember, if you get solicited by phone by somebody you don't know, claiming to be somebody that you can't verify, just call us. Take a number and call back. Any legitimate entity trying to reach out to you and ask you either to provide money or claiming that you want something you didn't apply for, or that you're in trouble for something you didn't do, call us, buy time. I'm telling you right now, these folks are getting money from people that feel intimidated in the moment. They're very persuasive. They're very persistent. There were two residents in Rhode Island, one from Tiverton and one from Narragansett. Both had the wherewithal after being initially solicited from, you're shopping online, you get these little pop-ups. And sometimes the pop-ups go to a place where you're trying to click out and you end up clicking on it. And it tells you now you're involved in child molestation or child pornography, which is what happened to one of these. And when they reached out to explain that they don't have any of that content, it led to this conversation where they get additional information. Then they tell them that they're being investigated by federal agencies. They have to turn over all their assets. So they're asking for the person to provide money to the federal government until the investigation's complete. Both of these victims reached out to their police officers, police departments in their local jurisdiction, and it led to a federal investigation, which led to the identity of these two people, a 22-year-old from Canada and a 22-year-old from Connecticut, who perpetrated these schemes. And that's what it usually is. It's somebody in their underwear, on a computer, or on the phone, in their own home, having you believe that they work for an organization. Please don't fall victim to that. Buy time. Somebody reaches out to you, you have every right to hang up on them, or ask for a call back number and call us. Normally what happens is when they say they're going to call the police, they get very hostile, intimidating. They make all kinds of threats and promises, and it's never true. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. I'm just gonna ask for a 3-minute break.
On a motion?
We are taking a 3-minute break.
Wow.
We're going to, on to appointments and resignations. Is, Susan Gardner here?
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little something about yourself?
I've been a resident in the town. I grew up here. My father served as a state representative in the 70s. My stepdad was the highway supervisor here before Scott Barber.
Oh, wow.
And I've worked for the South Kingston School Department for 23 years. And I worked with kids that had learning disabilities. I moved on to URI for 7 years. I worked there in the Potter building as a housekeeper, but I worked with a lot of students, you know, doctors, nurses. I feel like it's time for me to get involved in the community. I help a lot of people in my neighborhood, the elderly. I make sure that they have meals.
Sounds like you're already helping out quite a bit.
Well,
Thank you.
I am, but
Yeah.
I want to make a difference. I've retired from most jobs. I do a few things here and there, but it's time for me to get involved in the community, and I'd really like to start small and then proceed up.
Great.
I figure I can't do much damage in the dog park.
Be surprised. Mr. President,
Yes.
motion to approve the request for Susan A. Gardner to join the Dog Park Committee.
All those in favor?
I got a question for.
Sure.
Joe Gardner? Not a relation, Joe Gardner? Okay.
Gilman, I'm a relative of Gilman's. My father was John Gilman.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome to the party. New business. Discussion and consideration application for Brooke Dayon Little Beginnings, Inc. Did I pronounce it wrong? No. Anyway, water service connection at 5 and 7 Mechanic Street, Hope Valley.
Mr. President, move to approve with the recommendations of the Northeast Water Solutions for the connection for Brook Dayon Little Beginning Incorporated for
Second.
water surface.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item of business is I was requesting an update on the establishment of our municipal court.
Mr. President, at this time, the staff is waiting, for a new council to be seated to make sure there's still sufficient support for our municipal court.
Oh.
Mr. President,
Yes.
one thing at one of the meetings, I mentioned this, but I like to, you brought it up, it's appropriate. Could I please enter this into the minutes of the meeting? Is Karen Ellsworth's report regarding the municipal court that was dated March 19th, 2018. I'd like to submit this to Aaron into the minutes.
Has that been distributed previously amongst the council?
It'll be attached for the next agenda as a communication, but not.
All right, so that being said, we'll move on to.
Sorry. Is there a public comment for the discussion with the?
I would love public comment.
So, I think I'm glad that you brought that up. I think in addition to the fact that we're having the discussion about whether or not.
I know who you
Oh, I'm
are.
sorry. Chris Kona, Richmond.
Thank you.
I'd also like to remind the council that this was a referendum that ran through in 2022 that was approved by 561 residents of Richmond, rejected by 506. So this is not just the council that is trying to push this. This is something that the town has voted on in referendum and has elected to try to push forward. So I think it's important to consider as you're trying to move forward with this, that this is an effort that we, the people who live in Richmond, want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's something that I personally very much feel that we need as well. Moving on to my second request was a update of the naming of the Richmond Elementary School softball field after Ralph Woodmansey, I'm sorry. I just wanted it to happen while the council that approved it was still seated. And there's been apparently, you said there was some sort of a delay that the family requested.
Yeah, I mean, this is, the school has control of that property. The town's not planning this. This was something that, based on your request, we asked the school to do.
Right.
And the whole committee agreed to that. So at this point, it's kind of out of our hands.
Mhm.
But from what I understand from communication with David Woodmansey back in July, the family had requested that it happen concurrent with opening day in the spring. This past spring with the construction out here, they were concerned that it wasn't the right time.
Oh, so it's a go, it's just the timing of the actual announcement.
Yes.
Nice.
The next item is a request from Councilor Wilcox for discussion and consideration of creating an RFP for an ordinance study and codification to be funded by $25,000 to $30,000 of American Recovery Fund.
All right.
Would you like to give us some detail on it?
Sure. For those of us who are just tuning in, the Economic Development Commission last year did a presentation to council, and this was one of their recommendations. From what I recall, I don't know if we formally voted, but I do recall a pretty good consensus amongst council that we wanted to do it. The reason why we ended up, or why I ended up delaying it, was because of all the changes that came from the state, mainly within Title 18. So we were already kind of reviewing our ordinances and changing them on that front. But I thought it was worthwhile revisiting before we kind of lost the opportunity to use ARPA funds to use it. I don't know if that should be the main focus, like Title 18 should be the main focus, but I do think that all of our other ordinances surrounding zoning and planning could use a review and a fresh set of eyes. Which I also recognize that once we have an outside company do that, they'll just be that, recommendations. There'll be nothing really set, but we can take it with a grain of salt. We can do it, we cannot do it. We also have 2 new sets of eyes. The town has gone through a lot of changes, staffing changes. We have a new solicitor, a new town planner. So with the recommendation from somebody on the outside, we'll also have 2 new people to give us recommendations as well. So that's all. I just wanted to open it up for discussion, I guess.
So we need a motion and a second.
Did you make a motion?
No, I did not. Do you
So if
want
you
to make a motion
and a
to,
second, then we can
okay,
discuss.
motion to approve a request of creating an RFP for an ordinance study and codification.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion from council?
Yes, Mr. President, I actually put this on the agenda in June of 2023. And I had brought to the council proposals of general code ordinance revisions from Charlestown and another town that I gave the council. And I had this on the agenda because I could see the validity about, reviewing our ordinances. So, and my proposal was to use ARPA money to pay for the ordinance reviews. So again, I'm glad to see that, you're up to snuff on this now, that you see the perplexity of things that have changed and the validity of having to go and review our ordinances. Like I said, I put this on the agenda in June 2023. So I've already got some quotes here that Charlestown and Hopkinton had given me. And I'd be more than happy to submit these to the council for the next meeting.
Okay, and we all, I believe, agreed with you at the time that we should have done that. However, we chose to hold off because of the changes that the state made. It wasn't that your idea was not a good one, it was that your idea needed to be delayed until we had the state input. So
Right.
if you would like to submit those to Erin and she can.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
So any further discussion?
Can I just give a brief overview of what codification? So I think it'd be important to determine what ordinances you would want codified, because there is a substantial cost. We would have to go out for an RFP for a vendor to do that. While other towns' ordinances are great, a vendor would specifically look at all of our ordinances and provide a mocked up timeline. I did go through the start to finish in my previous community, and I don't know timing wise, we'll have to determine the allocation if that would be something possible, unless you really identified what ordinances you specifically wanted to do. I think it's super important to have all of our ordinances codified, so that they align with state law. Obviously, we did a big revision in zoning, and so that was kind of taken care of. But in the codification process, there's several steps. You can decide if you want to compare it to your land subdivision regulations. You can decide if you just want your general ordinances to be looked at, which normally does include zoning. So the scope of what the council would like to see will greatly determine the cost and the time frame.
Would, Mr. President, would it be good to have like after some of this information is passed out and we can disseminate it a little bit in a workshop?
Mr. President.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't think it's necessary to look at, like the other towns' ordinances, like Aaron had said, we need to look at ours and decide what ones we want to look at and which ones we don't, really.
This is just the scope of what they did, and it'll give us a good guideline to springboard for us. No sense reinventing the wheel when somebody's already done it. We can pick and choose what we want.
Just to clarify that though, a vendor, an RFP would have to come out and they would only specifically look at our ordinances
Right.
relative to state law.
Right.
Because, our varying communities, which the language, there's about 3 or 4 vendors that do this. So they certainly can look at other options to streamline it. But it's also going to be another budgetary item because it's a direct enrollment with the town solicitor for review and revisions back and forth before it comes through the council. So when I initially did it in my previous community, it was about a 1.5 year effort from start to finish. And so the scope of that amount of money, I'm not sure would do everything.
Right. The lengthy process. I'm just, reading through this.
Makes sense, Mr. President.
Yes.
The amount on the agenda was pulled from the EDC's recommendation last year. So if we can see what the RFPs kind of come back at and decide from there, if that's agreeable. I don't know.
That's agreeable to me.
Nope.
So do we know that there are certain ordinances that need review, like right to start with?
So the
fact that-
company would look, Mr. President.
Yeah.
The company would look at our entire set of ordinances. We're in a better position because a lot of ours are digitized on Clerkbase. And then they would go through and make a mock-up and compare it to state law regulations today. And then you would typically then review your ordinances on an every 5-year basis once they're initially codified. So they would take our current regulations and compare it to state law today and provide any discrepancies right off the bat and say, this should be removed, it's outdated, all of that. So the company would identify that.
But that's if you do the whole deal.
Well,
So if we're trying to save money and we just do the most important sections, how would that work?
So you would have to determine if you want to look at all of your ordinances, just zoning specifically, or the land subdivision regulations. We have a great brand new comp plan, so that maybe Talia would want to weigh in on that. But I think that the council should think of direction on what items specifically.
I think we should have a workshop on this and then have something concrete to come and specifically approve. So I propose that we have a workshop on it. Talia,
I would just note that right now I am working on amending our land development and subdivision regulations to comport with state law. Those will be presented to the planning board, hopefully in the coming months. So that is something that I have in process right now, just for the councils.
maybe just like a half an hour before a meeting workshop that we can just kind of hash this out a little bit. And then by then, the documents that Councilor Colasanti has can be properly distributed amongst us.
If I may.
Yes,
No disrespect, but so the documents that Mr. Colasanti have won't in any shape or form be relative to our codification process here. Because our rules and regulations don't align with Hopkinton or Charlestown. So while I think a workshop would be a great idea, it might vet out some of the areas that you would like looked at before an RFP can come into fruition. But with the timing wise, that may be a concern. So I don't know if the allocation has to happen 25. I don't know.
I agree with you that the timing could be a problem just because now we have to schedule a workshop and then we've got to get someone potentially to help assist us in, I don't know how complicated this RFP is. I don't know if it's something we need to have someone write for us or if we can do that. And then we need to have it out for X number of weeks, then the council has to approve it, then it has to be, I think it's a heavy lift between now and the end of December. Not to say that it's not a good idea to do, maybe we put it in the budget for next year. I'm just concerned that it's not an easy, like, we want the walls painted, give me a
Yeah.
price on that. It's a little
Yeah.
more complicated than that.
Mr. President, just one more thing. This is just an outline of what the approach would be to codification. And it says right here,
I
one
just
paragraph.
don't wanna, we can't take documents and read them if they're not posted and they're not on the agenda. We can't do that.
So,
Is that,
Mr. President,
is that true? I can't read from something I've got in front of me?
No, so
Not asking.
no, the town of Charlestown went out to bid specifically for this, and there's about 3 or 4 specific vendors that do this. And so there is RFPs out there for other communities because this is happening, because you can't, if your ordinances aren't codified on certain allocations, you're not getting the grant funding. So it has been more identified as a priority. But each vendor would do this process differently. So an RFP and an identification of what ordinances we're looking at would determine that, and that would be different for each vendor.
Right. This is just basically an overview, so it would be a good read for everybody. Because it addresses a lot of the questions that, you have and what you brought up about codification. Legal analysis and so on and so on,
so Mr. President, what I'm wondering is there anyone here who knows which areas of our ordinances we do need to put our focus on now?
Talia does.
A little bit. I don't know the totality, but I have, so when I saw that this was an item on the agenda, I reached out to Sam to try and figure out what this was going to entail, so I could be prepared to speak to any questions that the council might have. There are certain titles in our code of ordinances that have not been updated since about 2005. So I'd say those could probably stand to be looked at again. Whether or not we need to make substantive changes, I don't know yet. But just based upon the age of some of them, that leads me to believe that it would probably be a good idea to consider those as quote unquote low-hanging fruit of, okay, well, we haven't amended this in almost 20 years. Maybe there are things that we could do that would be beneficial in that regard. There are other titles that have been amended more recently than that, but again, I think some of them are quite old. So I think it would behoove us to look at those at least.
Thank you.
So maybe it would be a better idea to just
Push this
allocate
off.
the money now and discuss the details of it later.
Well, unfortunately, the bid, we'd have to specify. So if land evidence is being updated, our zoning just received a complete overhaul. Those are the expensive ticket items, I know from experience. So if we looked at chapters, the regular ordinances, and some of them have not been updated. I know we've had meetings about the licensing. There's some conflicting sections of that ordinance. So chapters 1 through 17, you could specifically put that out to bid, and that might be a more palatable item.
The president, could we maybe have?
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're saying it's an expensive item?
Hmm.
Can you just ballpark? And item one, just to
So it
give
wouldn't,
these guys an idea, because they're asking,
So it's a
they're like, we should relook at all of our ordinances. Well, which ones? They don't even know which ones they want to look at. But yet they want to allocate all of this money to go and do it, but nobody has an idea of how much any of this actually costs.
we would have to truly codify our ordinances, we'd have to look at, definitely zoning is treated separately, land evidence regulations are treated separately. But the only way you're truly codifying an ordinance is to look at ordinances 1 through 17 completely. When I was in West Greenwich, we had nothing digital and nothing was codified, and we did land and zoning and everything at the same time. And that's about 10 years ago. I believe the total finished cost just on the codification portion was about $68,000.
Thank you.
So I have a question then. I guess it's not really a question for you or for anybody, because the EDC came up with that estimate of 30, which is significantly less. So
But you're only.
I guess I'm not sure where that came from. So I mean, that's fine. You learn something new every day, and it is what it is.
Well, Mr. President, I did my homework, and the figure here is $70,000. So that's right in
Yeah.
line with what you paid. All right, it's about 68,000 for what they did. So I did my homework. I knew how much it cost and whatnot. So as far as I'm concerned, if the council doesn't feel they want to do it, I didn't put it on the agenda, but I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that I already broached the subject many moons ago.
Okay. Did you want to withdraw your motion, or what would you do?
Sure. Sure. We don't want to go
Okay.
for it. I just think it would be worth.
And I withdraw a second.
Can I, before you do that, if I may, Mr. President?
Sure.
It'd be, you could do a placeholder for the funding, since we have some of these placeholders. Identify going out to bid, and then at least you would know the time. At least we would know a few things. We would know the timing for the RFP and bid, and we'd know the cost.
My only concern is are we gonna end up holding up the decision on everything else on this?
Yeah, we've
That's a
got
valid
to,
concern.
we've got to spend the money before, or allocate the money.
Well, it's more than just the council saying you can have X number of dollars. It's a bid has to be awarded
Yeah.
to a vendor.
Right. Well, Mr. President, I agree with the town administrator. There would have been plenty of time on this over a year ago. We don't have enough time to do that right now. And with grants and whatnot that come down, hopefully maybe in the next fiscal year, maybe there's some grants that we can get that would pay for something like this over here, especially the state, where they're, implementing a lot of these changes to our ordinances and whatnot. Maybe we could hit them to pay some of this for us.
All right, thank you. Sir,
Sir, is there a forum for public comment or?
I always believe in open.
Thanks.
Was
Gary Parker, Richmond. Questions was asked, phenomenal questions about, especially, which ordinances would you like to review? What would be the objective? Speaking very high level, back in 2013, when I was on the EDC, we actually, I'm sorry, 2013, 10 years, 11 years ago, we proposed something very, very similar to this. We begged the town council for a strategy because we were reviewing the ordinances so that we could actually create desired outcomes. Desired outcomes such as, like we were talking about the what was it, the Wyoming project, sir, the whole development and Cycle Brothers and all that stuff. We said, well, is that the correct course of action? Is that what we really want to do? Is that we want to put the effort into developing a centerpiece, or do we want to look elsewhere at our economy from the town's perspective? We never really got any guidance from the town council on that. So when we ask ourselves a question, this is my thought. when we ask ourselves the question, what ordinances we'd like to review, ordinances provide two things. They either provide constraints or they provide enablement. They either get in the way or they enable. And so I think from the town council perspective, and maybe especially the EDC perhaps to help advise you or work together, I would just recommend that as you take a look, definitely there's a requirement to take a look at the ordinances. But that has to be part of your strategy. So it has to create, if you have a strategic vision, what you want to get out of this economy, get out of this town, to create a tax revenue basis, to create economic wealth. My graduate degree is in this exact subject. So if you want to create that wealth, we have to look at what ordinances are getting in the way of wealth creation and but also perhaps helping preserve the environment, such as when we did the aquatic, the APOD with the with the planning board. That was a strategic resource. We want to make sure we don't destroy our water system. So that was I just offered that as maybe a guidance. I commend Councilor Wilcox on suggesting this, and but also the discussions that you've all had. This is a project that you really want to. I think we want to focus on before we would just completely shelve it. I do offer that as an alternative. Be done in 30 seconds. Offer as an alternative to large development projects. We look at our latent and dormant wealth that we actually have in our town. People who can develop their properties that might be constrained by current ordinances. We've got farms galore. We've got small vendors galore. We've got folks who can sell things out the end of their driveways, and we've got tons of that. Instead of that being something that we're doing in the gray market, I think we should open that up and make it into the open market and actually have that being part of our wealth basis.
Yeah, I would like, if before you leave, I could get your phone number.
Of course.
So don't leave in. Okay, thank you.
Subject to your questions. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So now we,
Communications.
Mr.
What,
President.
Sam had a motion.
We did, we
Withdrawn.
withdrew it.
Withdrew it.
Officially withdrawn.
so would somebody like to make a,
Mr. President,
yes,
motion to file communications petition proclamations.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Mr. President.
yes,
Move to go into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246(5). A2A regarding the following pending litigation. Superior Court Appeals of Taxes Property at the Preserve at Boulder Hills.
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 How you doing?
From upstairs, yeah. No, no, yeah. Thank you. Yes, we'll be coming right I would, we just need to know if we're gonna do ordinances 1 through 17, include our charter. Then that's done, the bid is easy.
Yeah.
And then they would give us a price and we would know.
Already went through all that.
Yeah.
Next time.
But it's open to, it's going to be, it's public land, it's open to the public.
Oh, so they could see that.
You like reach through under the glass
Yeah, he's kind of going over that.
Yeah, I said, I want the glass back. Cause he was literally like gonna knock it over and he was like gonna, now I got to grab my hand. He had a release that was an original from a judicial court and Judge Lang sent him over there and I couldn't record it. Because it wasn't original. So. I know you did.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll put it in the budget and I can pay for it. Down here, the head?
That's it.
Oh, I like it. Is this the chair though you need? Oh, no, we got rid of all those Jeffrey chairs. Nice chairs.
Mike and Mark, okay, right?
I'm like, yep.
Carl sounds he's talking to them, it might be a while.
Oh, convince him that he's smart.
Ready?
So I need a motion.
Wait, wait, she's not ready.
Okay.
We're just testing. That's it. Cool. Mr. President.
Yeah.
Motion to return to open session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. President,
Yes.
motion to seal the minutes of the executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now that we're back in session, I'm making a motion to, I'm select, we're going to vote on the two selected designees to attend the the non-binding arbitration,
The mediation.
the mediation, I'm sorry.
Or the preserve.
Mess up a free lunch, couldn't I? So for the mediation, in November for the preserve tax issues, and those designees are, Michael Colasanti and Samantha Wilcox.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
I know it's too late.
Sure.
I think I know the answer.
Name for the record, sir.
Mark Reynolds. Will the designees at the mediation have the authority to bind the town to a settlement, or will the settlement have to come back for full council?
I will answer the absolutely positively not, which is why I chose the broadest spectrum of people. I want a full picture. And the whole council is going to have to vote on this, not just two people,
Just want to make sure.
right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. President?
Yes.
And, just to also make, there were no votes taken in executive session, no actions taken.
Okay, there were no votes taken in executive session, no actions taken in executive session, and just to clarify, the designees will not be making any decisions on behalf of the town.
Mr. President, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.